Welcome to the Voices of the Goddess podcast. We believe that there is a goddess inside each and every one of us. When we use our voice to share that goddess, we support and uplift each other. Join us each week as we interview women to receive the message of their goddess within. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Voices of the Goddess podcast, where we empower, inspire, and uplift women to become the goddesses they were meant to be. I am Julietta, the Magical PT, your co-host, and I'm here in... It's like a sign from the angels. I'm
or
here
Amazon Prime, one or the other.
You've got mail. Anyway, we digress. So, I am a physical therapist here in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and we talk about this a lot. I'm a physical therapist slash podcaster slash jeweler slash artist slash author slash cat mom slash girlfriend slash I thought I'd try that one on for a second.
You are so funny.
And international traveler. How's that?
That's a lot, but it's awesome. It's all awesome.
Yeah.
So my name is Allison Mancini, and I am a holistic nutritionist. I'm currently in the process of getting my second certification in nutrition as functional nutritionist, which I'm super, super excited about. And I am a human resources director for the Goal Digger Girl. She's amazing. She does all this awesome training for network marketers and women that want to become coaches, or you just want to show up authentically on social media. She does all that. So I help out with the staff and the coaches and the students, and just there to support them in all that they are doing, all the amazing things that they're doing. I'm also a co-host of a podcast. And I know, believe it or not, and I am also a mom of two amazing adults, 25 and 22, wife to my hubby of 28 years. We've actually been together for like 30 years. And just because I like to always bring this point up, because it seems to be something that stands out when we say it, is we are both Midwest girls at heart. And Julietta's from Wisconsin. I'm from Michigan, but we have both been in Florida for a very long time. We were talking earlier before the show about, really, I know we talk about this on and off about just really finding boundaries, right? And boundaries in a lot of different ways. But the way I wanted to share today about boundaries is really about, knowing what you're passionate about and what you really, you feel called to do, you feel most passionate to do, which, by the way, did not come to me until later in life. Like I had to fully grow up to the age of 50 before I figured out what I wanted to do with myself.
But like, even when you have it younger, it can change.
So true. It can. Yeah. But the whole point of this is that, you have to be true to your passions, true to yourself. So what is it that you're really passionate about? And if you're doing things that aren't serving that, learning to say no, learning not to do those things. And I have really been challenged with that over the last, I would say, few months, but really in the last couple of weeks, I really thought, okay, enough of this, like trying to do all things, right? Because that's what we do as women. We try to do all things and say yes to everything. Instead of trying to do all things, it was time to really sit down and decide, okay, this is what I'm passionate about. This is what I love. This is what I'm driven, and this is what I'm going to do. So I think it's really important, because what was happening to me was I was spreading myself too thin, and I was feeling extremely frustrated a lot of the time, feeling like I wasn't doing my best at all these different things. And so for me to be able to narrow those things down. So I'm removing some of the slashes, Julietta. I'm taking some of them off.
Whoop, whoop. That sounds like reason to celebrate.
Yeah, not the good one. I mean, well, they're all good, but the things that I'm gifted at, like I'm excited to be, expanding my education with nutrition. I'm excited to be part of a growing, amazing company with the Goal Digger Girl. And I'm excited to be focusing on our podcast and empowering women. So that's where I'm at.
Love it.
Do you ever feel like that, like the boundary issue? You've been getting really good at that, though. You've been saying like,
definitely. And like true confessions, some of it comes from, like I'm less than a month away from being 54. And I'm not going to lie, I don't have the same amount of energy I used to have, I was just the universe saying, like, yes, like it's just a part of life. Like, yes, we need to stay active and healthy and everything, but the body is still aging no matter what you do. So I don't like I enjoy sleep a lot more than what I used to, and require a bit more of it. So there's that side of it that helps me eliminate things that aren't really, that I don't feel super passionate about. So yeah, I have been little by little moving things off of my, removing slashes, using the delete button, whatever it takes. And so that you have more time to focus on the things that you're passionate about. So it's really important. So I invite our listeners, like, what are you making yourself do, like, out of obligation, that's not really serving you and doesn't fit in with your passions, and invite you to, like, take some things off of your plate and just let somebody else handle them.
And I think too, I think you made a really good point as just a last like kind of thing is that those do change. Seasons of life are different. When my kids were little, when they were full on into would have been, that was a very different story. I'm an empty nester now. It's just different. Pre-married was different then too, right? So like, it's just, and I think that's the other thing to be okay with, that knowing that those things may change as you progress through life, and that is okay too. So
yeah.
So yeah. All right, should we bring our guest on? Because
let's bring our guest on.
She's coming from far away on the other side of the United States.
That's awesome.
All right, Felicia, how are you? Oh, I love hearing you guys chat. It's like I can just join you with my coffee.
Yeah, we enjoy.
Coffee it is.
Oh, you do have your coffee there. Everybody has their own drink. Wonderful.
Yes, we're all ready.
Thank you for having me on. This is so fun. I just love this type of connection. So
all right,
thank you.
So tell our audience about you, Felicia.
Well, I love hearing all the titles that you have as we wear many different hats. So one of the various hats I wear is I'm actually from Canada. So I'm even further away than here right now in Silicon Valley in California. I'm originally from not originally, but I moved to California from Vancouver, British Columbia. Let me clarify that, in Canada. But I've been here for 17 years. I have 2 teen boys, 1 husband. And it's been a wild, wild ride. I started off as an accidental entrepreneur and jumped into a network marketing industry company. And I've been with that company for almost 7 years. Now I really, really enjoy meeting women like yourself, entrepreneurs, to dust off the buried dreams. Just like you were saying, actually, we didn't plan this, but everything you said, Allison, was basically what I was going to say. I love to help women to dust off the buried dreams, because when we wear different hats, different titles, we forget the dreams that have been in us since as a little girl, right? And then to find their gifts, their strengths, their calling, and then to help them to live their lives with passion and purpose. So that's basically who I am.
I love it. And I know little things about Felicia too. She's very about clean living, which is right up our alleys. She's all into that, which is awesome. And Felicia and I actually met in person back in May. So that was exciting because, a lot of people you meet virtually these days. You don't get to meet them in person. So it was nice to actually meet Felicia.
And it was on the beach at a beach house. So that was lovely through our coaching program. So that was really fun and very memorable.
It was awesome. No doubt about it. All right. So we are going to dive into our questions. So are you ready, Felicia?
I'm as ready as I can be.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. Question number 1 is, what do you feel your superpower is?
This one's hard in a way, but after a little bit of reflection, I have to say it's because I wanted to say 3 things, but then I realized it's actually one of the same thing, but in various degrees. So number one, if I get to meet somebody, I am a natural connector. I love when I meet somebody, I help them feel like they're at home with me, and they're known, because I think that's who I am. Like, I'm a great listener. So, but on a deeper level, so if I get to know somebody a little bit more, I find that really great at affirming them, who they are, what they're doing. So that kind of goes together, right? Connector, affirmer.
Yep.
But when I really get to know you, like when we do, let's say, one-on-one, or really, intimate coffee chat or whatever, on a spiritual level, I can call out people's calling, their gifting, their strengths, because I see things in them that they may not see yet, or they have an idea, but they just need going back to being affirmed with who they are and what they do, just seeing it. So I have a way of seeing people, and it's really fun to call that out, because you can sometimes tell if we're connecting, face to face or visually, you can see them kind of light back up. So it's kind of like 3 in 1. So connector, affirmer, but also a caller. So calling people out.
I love that. I mean, and I saw that firsthand in May. Felicia has a really incredible way, and I love, because if someone were to ask me, I would be like, yeah, Felicia's really good with people. And if they said, well, what do you mean? I wouldn't really know how to pinpoint it, but you just described it beautifully. She just has a really great way with people. And I watched her do just what she described with a group of women. And it was one of those moments where everyone was like, oh my gosh, she just totally did. That was so cool. It was so amazing. She just has a really great way of understanding. And the other side of that, Felicia, is I feel from my perspective and from the people that are around you, you have a great way in being able to communicate what you're hearing and what you're seeing to help them figure that out. Does that make sense? Your communication is amazing. So
well, thank you, because sometimes at a deeper level, or if you're going to call it spiritual level, it's very hard to translate that into words, everyday words. So thank you for that affirmation. Look at you.
There you go.
Like the affirmer.
Yeah, no, it's true. I love that. That's a really amazing superpower that definitely not everybody has. All right. Are you ready for question number 2?
Yes.
Okay. So if you're like the rest of us, I shouldn't say that. A lot of us are kind of book nerds. I mean, you can see all the books behind me. So I know and the worst part is I have 8 books sitting on my desk next to me that I'm in the process of trying to read, right? Okay. 8 books at one time. I think I've lost my mind. Anyways, we love asking everybody what their favorite book is. We have a book club. We love being voracious readers. So what is a book that has influenced your life?
This was really hard, because if you went to my bedroom, I don't have a bedside table. My bedside table are stacks of books. So that's my public confession to everybody here on YouTube land and podcast land. So it's rather embarrassing, but I think it speaks to the appetite of, being voracious learners. So, but also speaks to, when I said we have, little girls' dreams. That's what I actually did. When I was a little girl, I went to the library. I asked, what is the maximum number of books I can take out? And I took that number out so that I can return it. I think it was 2 weeks at that time, all read. I don't know how well they were read, but I wanted to read. So that's how I love to read. And I have to say, out of all the books that I've read, I would have to say the most impactful ones are the ones that are autobiographies, because when something's the most personally shared, it's actually the most universal message for everybody. Mm-hmm. We can all relate. I'm sure you can think of somebody that you've known or you've read. It's like, wow. Right. And then you become instant best friends. So I couldn't decide between the two, because one of them really helped me at my darkest times. Is what we call, dark night of the soul. You probably heard that term before. Mm-hmm. I literally felt like that. And I was like that. I mean, the whole, clinically, you can call it depression. There was no joy of anything. I slept for 14, 16 hours a day. Didn't feel like I slept anything, slept at all. And that went on for months and months. But what basically helped me to put understanding to that season was I'm a Christian, but I believe that we can read from various fields. And St. John of the Cross, his book, Dark Night of the Soul, literally spoke life back into the darkest times of my life. And I think that book came back to my mind is because of the times we're in right now.
Right.
Globally, wherever you're staying, wherever you're living, even personally, internally, I feel like we're all living a very dark time in our lives again. And so the other book that has been with me since as a little girl, but it came alive at 16, is the Word of God, is the Bible. It's just a book I just keep going back and forth to because it's literally alive and active. What I was reminded today was like sharper than any double-edged sword. It's like a surgical knife. Mm-hmm. So it's those two books I think has been the most formative, if you will, and put the most meaning in my lifetime so far.
We have definitely had quite a few people have said the Bible. Really, I mean, it's been very refreshing for people. I mean, we get all kinds of responses. We get we have people from all kinds of backgrounds that come onto our podcast, but we have definitely had people say the Bible quite often. I have never heard of Dark Night of the Soul, but I can totally relate to that feeling of, like you said, if you're going to clinically describe it, depression. I mean, I've been there. I've dealt with that my entire life since I was, probably in my teens. So those are two very amazing books.
It's a hard read, St. John of the Cross, but because it's translation and, and a couple of other medieval saints as well. But they really know the talk because I don't know how to say it, but theologically, they really put meaning back into life. So it makes sense. It makes sense, and it gives you hope, and it gives you, enough courage to move on, to take the next step. So it's hard read, but they're so good.
Awesome. All right. Are you ready for question number 3?
Sure.
Okay. Question number 3 is, what is your favorite form of self-love, practicing self-love?
First thing that came to my mind, my nails are calling out for a pedicure. And my neck is calling out for a massage, a 90-minute massage. I mean, I don't know if anybody does 2 hours, but if they do, I'll take 2 hours. But those are my self-care. But internally, what I can do every day is actually to forgive myself. It's to forgive myself and to give myself permission to start again. I don't know about you, but I don't know if it's a mom thing or a women thing, but I tend to be so hard on myself and speak words to myself that I would not speak to anybody, not even a stranger. Like, just, how did you do this? Why did you do, if I could literally hear my thoughts, I would just be so shocked. So that's one thing, is to forgive. Say, it's okay. Let it go, right? It's okay. Keep going. And so that would be like a daily self-care for me. And I think it's because I think on the flip side of that, when we are hard on ourselves, it's because we want to better and serve the people around us. We want to improve and we want to give our best. So when we don't feel that we give our best, that's when we start doing the negative talk, but we got to flip that and say, no, that's okay. You're human, whatever it is to keep going and to forgive. But I think forgiveness is a huge, huge factor. That's kind of like the barometer, if you will, of how you're feeling all the rest of the day.
Yeah, I really love that. Go ahead, Julia.
No, it's just like, and that was another chapter in the book. Success principles, and talking about forgiving ourselves and forgiving others. Like, holding grudges doesn't serve anyone, and especially to ourselves, it just limits us more. So I have something happened in recent days that I've really I've been beating myself up about it a little bit, and it's like, it's time to stop and forgive myself and move forward. Yeah.
Yep.
And Can I add? Go ahead.
Yeah. No, go ahead, Felicia.
I think when I want to add that when we forgive, we actually have a lot of power, because I think sometimes when we think about forgiving people, it's like, oh, we're going to relinquish, we surrender, right? It's like, I give up. But actually, when you forgive somebody, forgive yourself, you're actually empowering somebody to be set free. So you have a lot of power when you actually forgive. So it's almost like a topsy-turvy, is that the right word? Upside down understanding of what forgiveness is. It's actually power. There's power to forgive. When you forgive, you actually feel more empowered.
Absolutely.
And I think that's even for ourselves. When we forgive ourselves, we're empowering our, you know what I mean? Like we're back at ourselves. And I listening to what you were saying about the, you know, self-talk and, you know, the things that you say to yourself. It's so interesting because I've been here, you know, since I was probably in high school. I can remember even my parents went through a really, really difficult divorce when I was 13. And my mom really went through a lot of very hard times for herself personally. And one of the things that she started doing was she started really getting into more at that time. So we're talking in like the early 90s. She was like into like positive self-talk and affirmations and all this stuff. And she started sharing a lot of that with me. And I can remember at the time thinking, yeah, that's easier said than done. Sure, you can like, okay. So, you know, I was like 18 and I'm like, yeah, whatever, mom. But now as an adult, I catch myself. Like I can be walking the dog and just thinking about maybe something I did today, or maybe something I forgot, or I didn't do as well as I wanted to. And that all those things start going on in my head. And I'm like, whoa. Like, holy cow, you would never speak to your children like this. I would never say to my kids, Allison, or Lexi or Nicholas, that was the stupidest thing you could have ever done. Right. Like, but yeah, we'll do it to ourselves. So I like that you do that every day, that you forgive yourself and, you know, give that kindness back to yourself. I think that's a really great form of self-care. You know, we were talking about that in a previous interview that yes, self-love is about the massages and pedicures, and we all enjoy those and love those, but really it is so important to do something on a daily basis. And I love that you do that every day. Very awesome.
Thank you.
All right, number 4. So this question actually came to us because when Juliet and I first had this thought that we wanted to do a podcast and support women, we did research. You know, we wanted to know, well, how do women need to be supported? And one of the things that kept coming up over and over was a lot of women really struggle with accountability. So Felicia, how do you find accountability in your life with all the amazing things that you're doing?
Besides having a few besties around, I think what I'm going back to is actually going back to journaling, because I've always journaled, but I stopped for a long time because of motherhood and, you know, all those things, all those excuses that keep piling up. But I started going back to that and giving myself a challenge to write down 9 things I'm grateful for every day, starting, I don't know, a few days ago to the end of the year, so that I can collect over 500 things I'm grateful for. And I chose to write in a, you know, calligraphy pen, so it makes me feel better. But I realized that when we journal something down, we're actually activating a different part of our brain that actually will speak more truth than when we verbalize something. So yeah, I love neuroscience too. So going back to that and starting to journal more actually has been very freeing, and it's actually making myself accountable to myself. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
But you know, on a practical, another bigger level, so I'd like to talk into various degrees, right? Is I look at athletes, professional athletes, right? They improve and they get better when they have a personal coach. So, and that's just the end of it. I mean, there's just no other way around it. If you want to improve, get better, besides reading all the books that's, you know, on your shelf, you know, that's in your Amazon cart, like you just get a coach, whether it's group coaching or private coaching. It's just part of life. So, you know, it can be a nutrition coach, right? It can be a gym coach. It can be a family therapist. I call them coaches, right? They're for your family's life. It can be for your business, whatever it is. A coach is definitely one of my lifelines, and something that I probably will not have for the rest of my life.
Yeah, but you're preaching to the choir here. We're all about coaches with both, but it's so true. I love how you compared it to the athletics, because that was the one thing growing up in my adult years, I was always like, I don't need a coach. That's for people that are like, I don't know, big CEO wig people. That's what I always thought. And then I started watching all the coaching I got my children. Like my daughter did private dance coaching. My son had private skating lessons and hockey, like all the coaching that I did for them. I'm like, wait a second. I'm like, we all need coaching, right? Even for our businesses. And yeah, I mean, I think we're along the same lines. Like the journaling that you spoke about, Juliet and I are all about journaling. We both journal every day. That, the writing down what you're grateful for. I love it. I love that you're doing it like beautiful and in calligraphy, and you'll have that to look back on. I think that's so really beautiful. And I just know you're going to love it for a long time. But I agree with you 100%. Like, and I love what you said. A coach doesn't have to be like, do what you can afford, do what works for you. If you need to start with a group coach, because coaching, even if you start with a group coach, you will grow and shift so much that you will then find yourself, okay, now I can go on to like having an individual coach, like in whatever, like you said, there's coaches for everything out there. I know financial planning coaches. I know accounting coaches.
Absolutely.
And Felicia and I think we know like every genre of coach possible between our connections. But, and like you said, you are doing coaching, and, I know that you've worked with coach, some of that I know, and, it's truly important. And I know Julieta's been there too. So very important.
Right. Very critical. I mean, when I was growing up, I called them mentors, right? It's like the mom or the auntie figures. But it helps us to keep growing, because literally, if we don't keep growing, regression is easy, it's natural. Being stagnant is natural. But to keep growing, it actually takes effort. And for me, there's no other way to live, but it's to keep growing and to keep learning. And it also keeps us young, right?
Yes. Keeps our brains healthy.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, Julieta, my friend, what is your takeaway from our time with Felicia?
So my takeaway is really the forgiveness. And I loved, talking about the power behind forgiveness. And because yes, definitely what I've been going through and how I've been feeling about it and feeling guilty about things has definitely been disempowering. And so, yes, it's time to forgive myself and be powerful and move forward.
I agree.
What's your takeaway, Allison?
I would say, what I got out of this whole time with Felicia, and I love this because, and this, I say this all the time, but when we do our interviews back to back, they always tend to have like these kind of reoccurring themes, which I think is always so cool. But one of the things that Felicia was talking about a lot, at least that's what I heard, was the learning, the constant learn. Like I am all about that too. And it's like you said, if you're not doing it, you're just stagnant. You're just sitting there. And I am like the perpetual learner. I could take a class all the time. Actually, Felicia, I think you and I've talked about this before. that we can, I think we've chatted about this in Messenger, that we could like be continual taking classes all the time. But it is so good for you. And it's, and I don't know, my brain needs it. My brain craves it. If I don't do it, I'm like, I gotta have it.
Yeah. One of my favorite leaders, like he says, everyone ends up somewhere, but few people ends up somewhere on purpose.
Yeah.
So as we learn, it gives us purpose, it gives us direction, it gives us the next step that we want to kind of unveil the dreams that we've been innately given from birth. I really believe that. So I believe we're divine beings. So when we are unveiling those divine gifts, we do that through learning and from a community like this. I think that's why I immediately feel connection with you too, is because, we share the same values and wanting to keep growing, but also keep serving, because when we serve, that's when we actually grow the most. And so I love that you're doing that and giving the platform for women to share their voices, because it's in the being, when we speak, it actually comes alive, right? But when we speak and we're heard, we're actually known. So it's the knowing and the coming alive that really gives purpose to our why we're here on earth. So I really believe every single one of us have at least one gift to give. at least one. And, I've said this before. It's like, there's how many billion people in the world right now? 7 point something billion. If one person shares that one gift, we can solve over 7 billion problems. Can you imagine that? We can solve 7 billion problems that the world has if one person just shares that one gift to serve the world.
Yeah, I agree. We talk about that all the time. Everybody has something to share and something to say, and you need to put that out there into the world. And okay, Felicia, what is your takeaway? Is that your takeaway? No, you have another. Be your takeaway. If that's
oh gosh, I don't know. I think it goes back to when I was thinking about how you call what you call your podcast. Voices of the Goddess. I don't know the background of it actually, but the word voices just really came to mind. And that is partially what I was saying just earlier, is to give people a voice, a platform for them to voice their story. Because in understanding the story, they can actually grow in their business, not just in their personal life, but in their business, in their endeavors, in their, living out the dreams that they've had all their lives. So thank you. Thank you for having platforms like these and others that I'm sure to have people to voice their story, because their story is the most powerful thing. Like I said in the very beginning, when we share what's most personal, it's actually the most universal message for everyone to hear.
Yeah. It's so interesting because when listening to what you're just saying, Julietta and I, when we started this podcast, it truly was. We wanted to support and lift up the women that we knew because we're in the middle of the pandemic. People were really struggling, feeling very isolated, alone. And we just wanted to do this to really support all the women. What we never expected was how much we have grown and learned from this. And really, and it brings me back to what you said about when you serve others is when you also are growing and learning. And I see that very clearly. I mean, listen, going through program with Kimberly, that's one of the things she always talks about too. Like, learn, implement, teach. Like you got to put it out there. When you do that, you learn, you keep learning when you do that. And I think for us serving women like this, we are growing just as much as the women that we're serving in the audience and the women that come on. And the Voices of the Goddess was really that. We wanted women to share their voices because everybody has a voice, and Goddess because we feel like we're all pretty amazing. So
yes, you all are. And I can't wait to get to know you more, Allison, and hopefully meet you one day, Julietta, whether it's in Egypt or another place of this earth. One day we can manifest that and make that happen.
Yeah. Awesome.
All right, Julietta, you want to wrap this up?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you, Felicia, for joining us today. I loved everything you had to say. And thank you to our listeners for joining in. And if you've liked and enjoyed what you've heard, please subscribe, follow, like, and share this with other goddesses. Also, if you'd like to be on our show, you can go to our website, theotgpodcast.com. And we have a form on there you can fill out to request to be a guest on the show. We'd love to have you. And if you'd like to get a hold of Felicia, Allison, or myself, check the show notes. You'll find all of our links to social media, emails, etc., etc. So with that said, thank you all and have a magical day.
Hi, Felicia. Thank you.